Tiff and the Punisher, they won't back down, screaming out loud in every town. Stand against the system that's gone insane, fighting like lions, don't feel no pain. Abolish CPS, their rally cry. No kids for cash, we won't comply. Make parenting great, let's take a stand. Tiff and the Punisher, hand in hand. Voices heard, don't tread on me. Taking back rights, we will be free.
They are taking our kids every day. I shout them in and no one has a thing to say. For those who have been isolated, don't be worried, you have a voice today. So listen up everyone, here is the story. Child Protective Services is real. CPS is what they call it. They want our kids because it fills a lot of people's wallet. We all think it won't be us. We say when they come we will be so tough. It all sounds good when there's no one to take them. But when they come, your voice gets to breaking. Stay calm, step away. CPS ain't taking no one today. We are educated. Stay calm, step away. CPS, you need to leave. I know the tricks up your sleeve. You can't do what you're trying to do. We've done our homework. Don't do a damn thing without a warrant. You no longer will steal our kids this way. Tiff and the Punisher have come for the calling. They are giving us the CPS warning. Their voice is loud and clear. We stop losing our kids this year. Tiff wants to fight the entire planet. She is tired of our kids being taken, God damn it. She's been fighting CPS for 30 years, bringing children home from this disgusting mess. The Punisher is screaming out loud, abolish CPS and tear it down. I want all our kids to come back. Look at all those kids, pictures held up like thin tags. Together we are stronger than we need. We will tear down CPS with high speed. We will do so much being together. Birds of a feather flock together. So watch out CPS, here we come. picking you one by one. We promise to bring back the family and prosecute the caseworkers unhandily. So give us back the kids you have taken. Tiff and the Punisher sending you all on a vacation. The one with bars in the windows, and the only games you play are old Nintendos. Corruption in courts, here we come. We won't stop until it's done. You judges need to learn what you stand for. This is Tiff and the Punisher warrior, and we cry out to all of you out there. We need support for a cause that many don't care. All children are being stolen way too often. So CPS, we plan on doing the stopping. Stop.
Turn your mic on.
Yeah, look at them already going for us, huh? Already they're already trying to get us to be blanked out because they know we got a special guest tonight. I can't even believe the things that I just heard. Hold on a minute, I'm trying to clear some things up. Maybe we can get some speed here. Because they all of a sudden just are jamming me.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. But before we do this, let me just do this. Hold on a second, guys. Sorry about this. We don't even have that. VPN's not even connected. That's crazy.
So if
right.
we get cut off, we will do an interview pre-recorded with her because we're already having issues from the moment she came on.
Yep. Isn't it funny how that happens, right?
Yeah, imagine that.
Yeah, I'm going. All right. I seem to be moving at regular speed now. So that's good. But I want to read something here. I don't know how many people are here are. That's not the right one. I don't know how many people here are part of my Fight CPS group, but if you are, bear with me while you hear this. But if you're not, then well, check this out. This is crazy. So when I was going through the comments from YouTube last night, right, I had looked and I'm like, because I go through and I check all the comments, see what people have said. And I mean, because if you take your time to, put comments up in the YouTube, at the channel, then, you deserve me to take my time and write you back a response, and pay attention to that stuff. So you wouldn't believe the freaking letter that I got, which I'm going to find these things right here, posts. And I'm so glad that this guy got back to me this morning because I did unintentionally erase his thing. So I'm so glad that I had saved it because I was able to put it back, and then him and I continued on. Lucky Darren. You know what I do know? I don't know a lot about technology, but I do know about saving. And that will save your ass some of these days, But let's see here. Where's the community? Let me get this up here. Sorry, guys. Let's see. It's got to be right here. There we go. Here we are. All right. So this guy here is pretty, well. So after I told him that he said Child Protective Services does not have enough funding nor enough power and should be given more authority to protect children and a lot more funding to support them when they do. So I said back to him, I said, I will agree to disagree. No amount of money to protect a child is too much. One child is worth the Fort Knox gold stash, hands down. However, CPS has shown what they do with an open checkbook and godlike authority. Watch more of our shows. Learn and educate yourself as to the truth. You have the right idea. You just aren't correct about the true effects CPS has on families with their tactics and their lies. And then we went on, and then he says this. He says, hold on to your seats, people, because this gets good. He says, at Abolish CPS, as a queer person who survived abuse and lived through both California's weak protections and Texas's stronger child welfare policies, I need to call you out on the dangerous misinformation you're spreading. At Abolish CPS, your rhetoric is exactly what puts kids like me at risk. In California, I was failed by a system that prioritizes parents' right to discipline over child safety. CPS couldn't act in my situation because of loopholes that allow abuse under the guise of discipline. In Texas, where zero tolerance policies actually protect me, I finally had a chance. The difference in protection couldn't be clearer. One state cared more about parental authority, the other about child safety. Let's be honest, your movement isn't about protecting children. It's about eliminating accountability for abusers and pushing a far-right anti-LGBTQ agenda. The parental rights movement you're a part of is designed to harm LGBTQ youth by forcing them back into hostile homes where rejection and abuse are common. LGBTQ kids make up a huge portion of homeless and foster youth precisely because of family rejection over identity. When you strip away protections, you're putting us in life or death situations. Your conspiracy theories about CPS being a government trafficking ring are not just false, they're dangerous. They clog up hotlines and resources meant for real kids in crisis. Meanwhile, the data shows that most kids in foster care are successfully reunited with families or placed with relatives or adoptive parents. The system isn't perfect, but it's not monstrous as you claim. Your cherry-picked studies ignore the voices of survivors like me who are actually helped by intervention. You're also connected to religious extremism that has killed children by allowing parents to deny them medical care. In Idaho, kids have died because of religious exemptions to child abuse laws. That's not protection, that's neglect and murder. Your movement uses classic far-right tactics, stoking fear, spreading lies, and making violence seem unnecessary. You're not defending the Constitution, you're promoting a return to a time when children had no rights at all. The Supreme Court has made it clear. Parental rights are not absolute when children's safety is at stake. To you, at Abolish CPS, and anyone else spreading this garbage, your bullshit is built on lies and hatred. Your claim to care about children, but your policies would leave vulnerable kids with nowhere to turn. I know because I was one of them. The child welfare system saved my life when California failed and Texas stepped up. Evidence-based reform is needed, but your scorched earth, oops, I lost it, sorry. Stop wasting your resource platform. Endangers, let's see, sorry. Your scorched earth approach would destroy the safety nets that protect kids like me. Stop spreading misinformation that endangers children. Stop wasting resources with your conspiracy theories. Stop using your platform to push an extremist agenda. Kids deserve better than your dangerous ideology through your constitutional cosplay, and call out your movement for what it really is, a threat to child safety disguised as parental rights activism. Wow. So that's what we were that's the comment that we were given. What's your thoughts on that, Tiff?
I call bullshit.
Yeah, big bullshit.
The one thing that we advocate here is parental rights, right? Because the parents hold the rights of the children. And we do not advocate for any child to be abused, because I've said it, you've said it, every advocate that I know, like them or not, have said, if you are abusing your children, then your ass needs to go to jail and your kids need to be removed.
Correct. 100%. Look at that picture. I was frozen on the screen.
Yeah.
So here was my, I don't know where our guest went. She'll be back, I'm sure. But here's the response. And I want, if everybody here, let me know what you think, if I was too harsh on this guy or what. And I'm trying to get him to come on the show because I would really like to have this with him, this debate with him. So keep an eye out for our guest. And let me read this. This is my response, guys, to him. It says, you're out here waving your CPS pom-poms like it's the savior of all kids, but I, at Abolish CPS, is about to nuke your fairy tale with a truth bomb so brutal you'll be sobbing for the 525,600 children, one every 60 seconds, ripped from their homes by a system that's more monster than Guardian. You're not a hero, you're a traitor to every kid crushed by this machine, and we're going to make you face their pain with stats that'll burn your conscience to ash. In 2022, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services exposed CBS's ugly truth. 23% of the removals, 138,000 kids, were unsubstantiated. That's 130,000 children, some barely old enough to tie their shoes, torn from their parents' arms, dumped into foster homes, or left sleeping on CPS office floors. 13,000 kids endured that hell in 2022 because a caseworker's whim um, outweighed justice. Picture 5-year-old clutching a teddy bear, screaming for her mom, all for a false report. That's your lifeline, and you're cheering for it like a fool. You're crying about LGBTQ youth and their suffering. 30% of foster kids in 2022 were LGBTQ, often rejected by families, but CPS isn't saving them. It's their second executioner. In 2021, 60,000 kids aged out of foster care, 15% of the total with nothing. No family, no home, just a 50% shot at homelessness or prison by 20. Worse, 70% of foster youth face food insecurity, starving, while CPS misallocates $20 billion in federal funds yearly. Your Texas miracle, a sick lie? Texas has 65,000 kids in foster care in 2023. 40% shuffled through 10 or more placements. That's not rescue, it's torture chamber, with 20,000 foster kids attempting suicide annually, more than the national teen average. But you're not their advocate, you're their betrayer. You accuse us of an anti-LGBTQ agenda to dodge your own guilt. We're fighting for equal rights for parents and kids to have due process, not be obliterated by CPS unchecked power. California, your failed system, caseworkers juggle 30 cases each, twice the safe limit, missing real abuse while slapping neglect on poor families. 61% of the removals in 2022 were of neglect, often just poverty mislabeled. And the racial kicker, Black kids are removed at 2.4 times the rate of white kids in California, despite similar poverty levels. That's not protection, it's systematic racism, and you're clapping for it. Your religious extremism jab's a pathetic distraction. We're not defending Idaho's deadly faith exemptions, unlike CPS, which ignored 42% of the kids who died from abuse in 1993, despite prior reports. A failure still killing 1,500 kids in 2022. Your Troxel and Granville flex, it protects parental rights unless harm's proven, not CPS flimsy neglect excuse. 84% of the removals aren't even for physical abuse. You're ignoring the 15,886,000 kids in single mother homes. Many split because CPS branded their dads unfit over a late rent payment. That's not justice, it's family genocide. Here's the apocalypse for your soul. CPS is a $1 trillion empire that treats kids like cash machines. 2022, states pocketed $70,000 per special needs adoption, while 108,877 kids, some waiting 5 years, rotted in foster care. Private agencies rake in $12 billion annually, profiting off kids like commodities. You're not defending children, you're propping up a system that sells them. Cry for the 36% of the foster kids with PTSD, worse than any combat vet, or the 10-year-old curled up on a CPS cot, abandoned by the system you glorify. You're not the voice of survivors, you're the mouthpiece of a machine that fails kids at a rate that should break you. 525, 600,000 removals a year, 138,000 baseless, one every minute. We're fighting for the 20,000 suicidal foster kids, the 877,000 stuck in limbo, the Black families torn apart by bias. You're on the wrong side, man, betraying every child you claim to protect. Face the wreckage and weep the kids you've abandoned to this monster. That was my response to him. And that all being said, we got a true person to this story that can attest to this story and these monsters. Tiff, what do you got to say about Miss Barb?
I will tell you that her story is unbelievable, but let me tell you, you can't make this shit up. Put her on.
All right. You know what I'm going to do real quick while you guys are talking? I'm going to try to come out and come back in and see if I can unjuggle us. But you guys continue on because it will stay going.
Okay.
All right. You guys go on. I'll see you back here in a minute.
Okay. So everybody, this is Barbara. She contacted me. Now you just heard what that young man said, and you heard Darren's response. Can you elaborate on what you know the truth is?
Okay, I want to tell you a little bit about me. My name is Barbara Ann. I was a system kid, was considered a throwaway kid in the 1970s. I was removed from my home for abuse. I contacted all the right people, I thought. I was a little girl getting hurt very badly. So I went to my preacher. I went to the school teacher. I even walked to the police station in 5th grade. I'm getting hurt. I need help. Well, finally, 2 years later, they did remove me. So, and the biggest mistake of my life was reaching for help. In the process of that, I was in 33 foster, and within 2 years, 33 foster homes, 2 group home, 1 state home, and they placed me in juvenile detention for placement. When I went to court for being in placement in juvenile detention, now this is the Kankakee County Jail. It was downstairs. I'm in a jail cell with the orange jumpsuit. I'm 12 years old. I'm an abused child, and I'm scared. The judge sent me to Lester Roloff, Corpus Christi, Texas. Um, 800 foster kids from the state of Illinois was sold to the state of Texas for $3 million. This is in Governor John Hill's book, autobiography. Now, Governor John Hill, bless his soul, is the only person that I can ever say that reached to help us. My case is a landmark Supreme Court case in the state of Texas. It was an 8-year battle. It was a very political battle. I opened for the GOP convention for President Reagan and President Bush. My abuser became the head of TACA, Texas Association Child Care Association, which went to the White House under George W. Bush. And in the process of this 6-year battle that I reached for help, I got a life sentence. I suffer with PTSD, night terrors. I'm 60-some plus years old now. I still have night terrors. I still have anxiety. I still have PTSD. I still am a damaged adult from things that happened to me as a child that I didn't cause. I had to heal from that stuff. We had horrific abuse. The state came in. The letter that the guy made a comment on his page. He said the state of Texas helped him under the child laws of Texas. Them were created for us in 1973. Them were made for us because the FBI and the federal investigation that came to our home, Rebecca Home for Girls, was church and state. So they couldn't save us. Nobody could come in to save us. Nobody could go under in the church because it was a religious home to see us, even though the girls were running, even though they know the girls were being unalived and hurt very badly at that time. Our babies were being sold. This is an all-girls home. Don't forget this now. But there were babies, and they were sold for love gifts. And only a few babies have been located. You can look at that Stolen NBC by Tyler Kincaid. My friend Nancy, her daughter, found her 42 years later. So we are locating our babies finally, which are babies no more, they're grown adults. But these babies were still, through CPS with no birth certificates. They were born right there on our farm, so they have no birth certificates. Nobody can prove who they are. We have no education because we didn't get to go to school like normal kids because we were held in a cage behind a locked fence and a locked door with horrific abuse. We were cuffed and drained to drain pipes, and they knew this. There's many articles that you can read about this and that they knew this was happening to us, but yet no one would come and save us. I was there 3.5 years with this horrific abuse due to CPS trafficking. Our babies were sold through CPS trafficking. This is nothing new. And that I think hurts me more than anything. So many people think that this is something that just started, like this is new, but it's been going on for decades. And I've been yelling and screaming from the mountaintops for 40 years. Listen to the children who lived it, because we were there and we lived it, and we're telling you what is going on. And the funding is unlimited. I don't know if many realize, throwaway kids from CPS, we get 2 checks. See, if we're placed in an institution, you get your foster to state check, but then you get a federal check. So we're worth 2 checks. Then you got your clothing voucher, your food voucher, you got this voucher and that voucher, and you get more and more money for us that are just thrown into this system and locked behind these institutions with nobody to protect us. Who are we going to tell? Who is going to believe us? 3.5 years, not one time did I see a caseworker. Not one time did anybody call and say, "Are you okay?" I don't ever remember clean clothes. Well, we had uniforms, but my own personal clothes, I don't remember that. I don't remember even having clothes. I don't remember having a doll or a bike, going roller skating like normal children. And this is wrong. Children deserve a childhood. And I also testified to the House of Representatives. I testified to the Senate and Congress. I helped pass HB 556 into law, HB 560 into law. I worked in DC with the Stop Institutional Abuse Act to try to stop CPS and what they're doing to children. So that's my introduction of myself.
So we want to hear more from the children that are adults now that have been in CPS, because people don't believe, right, that children, even the ones that aren't being abused, are being ripped out of homes, and people don't understand that it's actually called, the American Bar Association has actually called this situation incentive to separate.
Yeah. One thing for me, I want to say the Native children, because I was in the Illinois training school, residential school in the early 70s with the Native children. And it's really the first time I can be honest to be around brown-skinned children, brown and black-skinned children. And very few white children were there at that time, but we were there mainly for abuse, bad things that were happening to us. They wasn't. They were there more for poverty. I mean, because they were poor, or 20 of them lived at grandma's. I would have done anything to be living at my grandmother's, sleeping on the floor where I was loved, besides in them places. But, it was two different types of removal, I guess, because poverty wasn't a reason to move a child. I don't feel. I mean, if the child is not hungry and got clothes, and they're loved, let them stay with their grandmother. Let them stay with their aunt. You know what I mean? Because I would have gave my left arm for that. But my grandmother worked, and I would have been home alone for an hour after school at 12 years old. So she was denied. My aunt and uncle, who fought 7 years for me, was denied because their income wasn't enough. Even though they had a 3-bedroom home out in the country and had 3 daughters of their own, she was a bus driver and he worked in a factory. Their income wasn't good enough for CPS, so they were denied. So off to the state I went, and I lived in foster homes and state institutions until I got emancipated at 16. I emancipated myself because I didn't think I would survive another 2 years. I didn't think I would have lived through another 2 years of what I was going through.
I was emancipated too when I was 16. I went through the process, and I tell people who are 16, because I live in Virginia, there's 3 requirements now, because then there really wasn't too many requirements. The only requirement was that you didn't have to live at home with your parents, and I fit it and I got emancipated. But the 3 it's 2, I think. You cannot live with a blood relative, and you have to have a job.
Right.
That's all that it takes to get emancipated.
But
go ahead.
Oh, but every time I try to speak to Congress or a senator, and anytime I try to bring up emancipation, they shut me down. They do not want emancipation to be out there for these children to know that. And I believe that in my heart, So my big thing is, how can we get these foster kids that are 16, 17, to know there is a way out of this system if you just do this. But if you're locked in an institution, you don't get to work. You don't get to go driving. You don't have no life skills.
First, I want to commend you for all the work that you did. And I want to thank you for coming and speaking out, because I was at a Juneteenth celebration yesterday, and I was mingling around because I'm having a rally Sunday here in my area, and I'm trying to get them all to come out. But the minute I say child trafficking through CPS, nobody wants to talk about it.
Yes. Oh, you get, and that's one thing. Words are weak to me anymore. Yeah, because I don't want to hear it. Please, I don't want to hear save the children. That has set me over the deep end. Because when we have rallies or we're fighting for legislation, nobody's there. And my big thing, I got banned after 5 years on TikTok, and I've been barred off most social media anyway. But where are you, America? Where are you? We need you. Us kids, the kids need you. Us adults that were kids, we need you. We're telling you the truth. Where are you, America? Why ain't you fighting for the children? Because the children are the future of America. You create damaged adults, you're going to have a damaged America,
And that is so true. Like, I've been doing this for, I hate saying this because I feel so old when I say this, 36 years, right? I've been getting kids out of foster care because I learned the system so well. I knew how to beat them at the game they were playing, right?
Yes.
Now, we don't always win because you can't win all the time. So when my parents would take a loss, I would take a loss. When they took a win, I took a win. But this is the thing. People say, why do you always want to talk about the parental rights? Because if the parents aren't in good mind and in good shape, then the children aren't that way. So we talk about parental rights a lot, right? But this is what people don't understand. Parents hold the constitutional rights of their children, and the parents, the good ones, we're not talking about abusers because they deserve everything they get.
Right.
They are the advocates for their own children.
Yes. And that's something I don't understand too, because a lot of these homes, like, we call it the troubled teen industry. That's when the foster kids are like a little bit older. The return adoption kids, they'll go drop off in one of these homes at 12, 13, come back at 18 and just think, oh, hey, mom and dad's here. It's too late then. There's too much abuse. There's too much hurt, and there's too much angry, and you lose your connection with your family. I got a biological family, my brothers and sisters, I ain't seen 30, 40 years, because we don't know each other because we were ripped apart. We very seldom, get to do that. We lose so much, like I said, our education. We don't got no education. I have no school records.
This is another thing for me, right? It is what you just said. Even if you are returned home after a certain amount of time, the bond is already broke. You don't trust your parents because you feel like this happened and they didn't protect you. And my biggest thing, I have two problems with adoption. One, I'm always worried that a sibling will marry another sibling, first off.
Yes.
Oh.
And second, I'm always worried because my dad and my stepmom were law enforcement and paralegals. My stepdad and my mother were doctors and nurse. So I always, in the back of my mind, said, what would happen if a child does not know where they came from and they have a medical emergency?
Yes. That's like me now. I got a lot of health problems, and they ask me questions. I don't know. I don't know I don't know my biological dad. I don't know very many of my biological family. I can't answer their questions, and that's a big issue. And speaking of that, one of the girls that was in my home, she actually dated her brother. She didn't know. She didn't know until years later that it was her brother, her biological brother. After she was already grown and remarried, they dated in high school, but she didn't even know.
Oh my God! See, that is like my biggest fear. Those are my two biggest fears, right? I mean, nowadays, you can swipe your mouth, and send your DNA in.
Will that matter? Even if you because they kind of erase who you are, right? So will that
Right,
even matter?
Like right now, I got 2 social security numbers. I got a fraud case going on because I can't. Let me explain the whole story, I guess. 2016, I filed through the Freedom of Information Act for my birth certificate. I won it. 2021, I finally won my biological. It took 5 years in court to get my biological name. I go to apply for my social security card. I'm denied. I learned In 2021, I have 2 social security numbers.
Oh, wow.
So we took the fake social security number, the second one, because that's my work history, got my retirement and all that. So we settled with that, which cool. I'll take that. Cool. Now I go get my driver's license. The Secretary of State hit me with fraud because I cannot prove. They kept pulling up these names and states and look, like one of them, I was 6 years old. I'm like, I don't remember that name. I don't remember living there. I can't prove that I can't prove this stuff. I don't know. So now I'm still going to court. My next court date is in January of 2026. Trying to prove who I am. I don't know how to prove who I am. How am I going to prove who I am? Only thing I got is a birth certificate that says that. I mean, is that really me? I got 2 social security numbers. I don't know. They're saying I got this name, that name, and every been here, there, and everywhere. I don't know. I don't even remember all my foster homes. There were so many of them.
How many foster homes did you go through?
I went to 33 foster homes, 2 group homes, 1 state home, to the mental institution, and to Lester Roloff Rebecca Home for Girls lockdown facility for 3.5 years.
Wow.
Well, I will say this. July 1st in Virginia, if you were adopted, you now have access to your original birth certificate here in Virginia. They just passed it. It goes into effect July 1st.
Well, you know what we got going on that they're waiting for the governor to sign. It failed 2 years ago. That foster children cannot be placed with human traffickers if you have a conviction.
Well, that's good. Yeah,
I got that's good, but you don't have common sense not to place a child with somebody that's convicted of human trafficking. I mean, they've been doing it for decades and didn't care. I mean,
well, I think the tide is turning.
The fact that they even have to say that.
Right. Even the fact that they even have to make a law to say that just stuns me. Just stuns me.
What does it take? What does it take to make these people open their eyes and ears and realize that this is a real thing?
I don't know, because it's just like the more I tell my story, I mean, it ain't as bad as it used to be. You're always going to be that bad kid, that attention seeker, and that liar. People are not going to believe it. And I think it's because some of the stories that, even though we got newspaper articles and stuff that prove it, because it ain't like I kept my childhood stuff because of 50 years later, I thought it was going to be important. It was my childhood. You know what I mean? Everybody kept little childhood things, and mine just happened to be like, I got proof now. I got this. I mean, this really happened to me. I mean, and they'll still read it and say, oh, that didn't happen. This is a newspaper article from 1973. What do you mean? I didn't make this up, And I don't know. And it ain't never going to stop, in my opinion, until they start charging the buyers, the people that are hurting these children, that are buying these children, because they, Freedom Village in New York, that's one of our spinoff homes. They have rent a teen weekend where you can go and rent a teen for the weekend. And there is a couple of lawsuits. It's shut down now in 2019. But, you can go rent these teens, and horrible things were happening to these kids, and they're coming back and saying, this person did this or this person did that. And they still let somebody come in, rent a teen, You don't rent children.
No, you don't.
Is that?
What, Darren?
I'm looking here in this. Is that high school named after you? That's not you, right?
No, I don't have a high school name.
I'm looking for some of these news articles here so we can put these up.
You can look up Lester Roloff Rebecca Home for Girls. That'd be probably a lot of news articles.
Is that the roll-offs?
Yeah, no, not the little midget people.
Okay. Yes.
Lester Roloff, he's one of the great men of God. He was a very famous evangelical, right-wing evangelical, with Jerry Falwell Sr., like Paul Rurick, all them. I knew all them personally. I knew them, these people personally.
Oh, wow. So what do you want me to, Lester roll off?
Let's roll off. Yes, Rebecca Home for Girls, Corpus Christi, Texas. Then a good article is the Christian Alamo, Texas Monthly.
Oh Lord. Did you have children of your own when you became an adult?
Yes, I did. Yes, I got 3 children.
Did
And I
CPS
wish,
get
I wish
involved?
later on in my oldest, but I wish I would have healed for my children. My children deserved a better person than what they got. You know, I will admit that. But in 8th grade, my daughter got in some trouble, and CPS did come in, and my mother ended up with her, and until she was 18. But I got to keep my other 2 children, and plus they gave me my boyfriend's custody of my boyfriend's child. So they gave me another child, but yet I couldn't keep my oldest daughter because her and my boyfriend got in an argument. And my ex-husband came in, he kicked in the door, and I got hurt in front of my children. Even though I had an order of protection, I moved 100 miles away to start my life over. He found us, came in, kicked the door. I ended up in the hospital. So they came to remove my children for risk of harm because I could not protect them. Not take him to jail, you know.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. This is crazy. This is, wow. All right. So there's a bunch of stuff on this Rebecca Home for Girls. Wow. This
Oh,
is,
yeah. Like I said, it's a landmark Supreme Court case. I mean, and
yeah.
if you look
You,
up, there's another good article. It's called the Beware of Grace of God, Texas Monthly. That's a little bit of the boy side.
mm,
The boys, they were put in, I don't want to get us kicked off or nothing, but they were put in animal stocks. If anybody
oh,
knows what animal stocks are, a couple of them have broken ankles. I mean, they talk about the GI cleanings. The GI cleanings were physical, not to
oh,
like toothbrush and cleaning carpet, even though there was plenty cleaning carpets. But
right. This stuff is just, and this is, see, these so many people out here think that when CPS comes and gets your kid, they're taking them to Fantasyland, you know, like, hey, we're taking this person out of this, we're taking this kid out of this home, which was imminent danger because the dishes were too high in the sink, or maybe they were in the parents were in a yelling match or something. But we're going to take them out of there, and then we're going to bring them to one of these nice homes like you're talking about here, that they're molesting kids, that they're killing, you know, like they're doing all kinds of horrible things because CPS isn't even vetting these places, and if they are vetting them, they don't care because they're getting paid for it anyway.
right,
You
right.
know, like that's it.
I was told I was going to a good Christian school. That's what the judge told me. You guys, I was so excited. I'm like, I'm finally going to be safe. I'm going to be okay. When I but I had to walk of shame when they took me out of the juvenile detention center, which remember, I'm there for placement, not that I was a bad kid.
Right.
For placement, I'm in shackles and cuffs. I'm taken to O'Hara Airport in shackles and cuffs and an orange suit. And I call it the walk of shame still to this day, because I still think, what were people thinking of me? You know what I mean? And
Right.
when I got picked up by a couple old ladies, they're like, "Oh, we got a good farm and we got a good school, this and that." And we're driving for a ways. Then all of a sudden, I look, I'm getting there. I see a guard shack.
Oh my
Now I
gosh.
see a fence with 3 things of barbed wire. I'm thinking, this don't look like a good Christian school to me, And I'm kind of
Right.
scared. And then I go in and it looked so beautiful. It was like a big hall down. You see a piano and stuff. It was a $3 million dorm that just got built a couple of years before that. Then I heard click, 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 3 deadbolts. I knew right then my heart sunk. I knew right then this was not going to be good, and it was not good. It
It's
was not
funny
good.
that you use the term throwaway child because I remember when I got emancipated, right? This one judge really, really cared about me and my sister. Because he looked me in my face before he emancipated me. And my mother and my stepfather were there. And the first thing he said to them was he wasn't placing me anywhere because it was not the children, it was the mother, and she needed psychiatric care. And he looked at me, and I'll never forget, I still get emotional about it. He said, "You and your sister are throwaway children. I can't even imagine how anybody could survive living in that home. And I wish you the best. And I hereby emancipate you. You are free to go."
How
Yes.
did you feel about that, though? How did you feel the fact that they called you throwaway children?
Well,
I got
I didn't
I got
really
used to
understand
it, I
what he
guess.
meant. You
I
know,
mean,
I didn't understand what he meant, but now I understand what he meant, right?
right. Yeah.
But let me tell you, it does not bother me to be called a throwaway child because I found my place in the world, and my
Yeah.
place does not involve my mother.
Right.
Mhm.
My mother passed now, but people, I say this, people look at me and think I'm just a cruel and cold hearted. It was my mother. I tried to love my mother.
Uh-oh.
My heart wouldn't let me love my mother. I could
Uh-oh.
not love my mother. No matter what I did, I could not love my mother.
Oh, it's terrible.
You
She
know,
was she was just that evil to you when you were younger?
no,
That's
my mother. When I got the abuse was very bad, but when I tested positive for sexual assault at the age of
Mhm.
11, the CPS gave my mother a choice. Either my stepfather could stay in the house or me. She chose my stepfather and put me in
Mhm.
the system. And I could never get over that because, like I said, that was the biggest mistake of my life was reaching for help. I thought the system was there to protect me, to help me. You know
Right.
what I mean? I
Yeah, we
never
got
dreamed that I was going to be thrown into a system that was going to destroy me and give me a
mhm.
life sentence.
Yeah, we have a lot of people. We have a lot of people that are victims of CPS because they called up because their husbands or like or vice versa, the wives or someone had an addiction problem or someone had a problem, with this, or they were seeking help or their kid was out of control or like there's a lot of different circumstances, but never once were they calling to complain and have their kids removed. They were calling to get help from a system
Yeah.
that's supposed to be helping these people. And
Yes.
instead, it tore them apart. And everybody regrets it. All of these people regret it. And I'll bet you there's a lot of people out there that regret calling CPS on these people that they've called CPS on
Yes,
because
there
they
has to be.
or they don't realize how far that they're willing to go. And it's not, I don't even think it's that far to CPS. It's not far stretch for them to say, we're just going to take your kid and get rid of him. And that's it. They don't
Right.
care. They're on to the
Like
next
risk
case.
of harm. What kind of charge is risk of harm? You're
Mhm.
removing a child for risk of harm. So you're removing this child because you think something might happen to this child later on. Not
Yeah.
that something happened to the child or
Hmm.
that anybody else been hurt, but just because you think, who are you? You're not God, you know?
Yeah.
Well, my
Yeah.
favorite line is, since when are CPS workers psychics? I don't have a crystal ball.
Right.
Hmm. Yeah.
And
Um,
what about their education? Many of them, and don't get me wrong, if that's the field they took and they mean it from their heart, thank God. But many of them are young kids and they learn it from a book. They haven't even experienced life, more or less, come into somebody else's life to
Right.
tell them what
Right.
to
They have
do.
no kids. They have no kids. They just came out of daddy's wallet. Like they have no experience in this. Half of them are out. They're all. Well, you know what we should do? Why aren't the caseworkers being drug tested? Why
Yes,
aren't they getting drug? Because you know what? They're all sitting out there on Friday nights drinking wine, doing their Adderalls and their Xanax, and all of this type stuff. And like that's their upper class drugs. You're not using the the stuff that the junkies are using. This is different. What they're using is the prescription pills. But why are they any better? You see all of this stuff online all the time or in the news that these caseworkers have drug charges, they have this, they have that. So if you're gonna go ahead and put accusations onto a person, then you better well be damn much better than those people. You can't
right,
be equal to that person and be expected to be like, oh well, whatever. You need to be better. Like that should be a standard. You know what? These caseworkers should have children.
right,
I think that should be a requirement. You should have a child, and you
a
should have
husband.
what's that?
They should have children, a
Hmm.
husband, and life experience.
Yes, life
Yeah,
experience.
agreed.
Before they ever can come in and tell somebody else that's experiencing life, and because I'll look at them when they send, like, even a therapist, you're 22 years old, I'm in my 40s, little girl, please go home. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
I
Open
just
door.
couldn't do it. And then I would go out, and I'm like, I can't do it, because
Mhm.
I just wanted to, you know.
Yeah. I know.
What
I told mine was that situation. My case, my caseworker. We were never going to win. We never stood a chance. Her father was the former attorney general, the prosecuting attorney general for the OCFS. So this was just a step for her to get from the point to get into the attorney general's office. That's all it was. And she was so ganged up on stacked up with people against us from the moment that they had it. They got our case. It was her father's right hand man from this person, and her father's guardian ad litem. Now he's the leading guardian ad litem in the state of Maine for hire. Go figure, right? Like, and all of this stuff, and like, so her family's in that group. We didn't stand a chance. Didn't matter what we did, what we didn't do, how we did it. Her thing, and then it comes into the senator that got the bill passed that included the things with my daughter. It was nasty. We never stood a chance, and people don't realize that this corruption exists every day in every state. It's not just here, and it's not just me whining about it. This is real, and these caseworkers, this is who they are. She
Yes.
didn't give a shit about my family. She could have cared less. The first
And a
thing
lot
she
of
tried to
people
do
don't
is,
understand. This is Title E funding. This is
mhm,
unlimited funding, unlimited
yeah,
money to these people in these
yeah,
organizations. And
yeah,
don't forget Big Pharma, because Big Pharma, many foster children, especially I can speak for myself. I was on such strong meds that
mhm,
now we call it chemical restraint, because
yeah,
they give us such strong meds because they don't want to deal with us, in these places. So now I was on 200 milligrams of Thorazine at one time.
wow, holy
Eh,
smokes. Whew.
Yeah. And I remember sitting there urinating on myself, drooling
Yeah,
on myself, all because they didn't want, not that I was mentally ill or because I was a bad kid. They didn't have time to deal with us. So
right.
that's
And then
what they did.
we're testing, you're guinea pigs for stuff.
Right.
They
Right.
have
And
unlimited resources. There's a place that I've been researching for a long time, and I'm not ready to break it out yet, but it's in the East Coast, and it's a city made up of strictly the population. No one's older than 21 or 22, and this place has been around for a while, and it's very close to a lot of testing facilities. And I believe that these people that live there, these residents and everything, are coming from testing by from CPS or by any other sorts of other government organizations. I mean, they have, it's just like this. They have an unlimited amount of, it's so easy. People are like, how can they traffic all these kids? Why? Because my daughter's gone. We've been TPR'd. We don't know anything about where our daughter is. We don't know nothing about her, where she is. If that family doesn't love and care for them, and if they disappear from that family doesn't want to get in trouble, or they just don't even give a shit. They won't even report it for 2 or 3 weeks. But at that point, who knows where your kid is? Because there's
right.
no one there to love and care for these kids anymore. They've got a perfect scenario to do all of this stuff. For caseworkers to be rogue and make kids missing, everybody, like, this is a perfect storm for missing children.
Yes,
You know,
and that's been going on since the 70s too. Back in the 70s, there was 60, 80,000 children per year missing. And I think,
yeah,
what was it this year, like 350,000 or something
yeah,
per year? I mean,
yeah.
where are these kids? Then they're classified as runaways. Okay, if they're
Mhm.
runaways, why ain't you reporting them as runaways? Why ain't you parents reporting them as runaways? You know how you can track these kids down? Check up, where's their check at? I bet their check ain't stopped. I bet that
Yeah,
money ain't stopped. Follow that
mhm,
check, follow that
yep.
money. Then you'll find out where these children are, because believe me, it ain't stopped.
No, and these people are double dipping. They get that social security number changed. Now they're taken for two. Because you still got two social security numbers when the parents change that. The adoption things. This thing. In the state of Maine, in their budget, they have a $3 million check that doesn't have to be cleared. It doesn't have to be approved. It doesn't have to be anything. But they can write up to a $3 million donation to any medical or any counseling services that need a little extra oomph that is pertinent to the department. Now, as far as I'm concerned, that's called bribe, right? Like you can give $3 million. What doctor's office isn't going to say that these kids are whacked and, give them the referral that they need to get a $3 million check?
Yes.
You know what I mean? And guarantee you, if that check doesn't have to be cleared by anything, that check doesn't go to that doctor's office. It goes right into their pocket.
We proved last year in the congregational hearing in Washington, D.C., which is recorded, that $38 billion of taxpayer money goes to these organizations. I bet people don't even realize that their taxpayer money is even going to a lot of this stuff that is going to hurting children, that are holding children behind their child's will. Because we're the only one in the world, as far as I know, that the United States, that an animal, that a dog has more laws and protection than a child does.
Yeah. Like this system came from them feeling bad about animals. Like that's what this derived from. We had a system for the animals before we had CPS.
Right.
Like that was crazy. But do people even care? Because I'll be honest, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, whatever it was, 4 or 5 years ago, if you told me that CPS came and they took your kid, that would be about the extent of the conversation that we're having. And I'm turning around and I'm like, what a piece of shit.
Right.
These people must be freaking horrible. If our government deemed that they were going to terminate their parental rights, these people must be the worst of the worst.
Right.
And the problem is that until it comes to you, that's your assumption too. Until it happens to you. But once it happens to you, it's too late. There's nothing you can do. Once CPS gets into your life and they get their hands on your kid, you lost. It's over.
They're like God. Yeah. I always said this. They're like God. I mean, the judges are over the judges or anything CPS comes in that courtroom and says, boom, 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 they're going to go by it, and it's just like, you got to be kidding me, and I'm not saying don't get me wrong. Drugs are bad. I'm not saying that. But you don't know what's caused that person in their life to turn to drugs. Right. You don't know the help they need, I was a drug addict for 30 years. I've been clean since 2010. I was tired. I was tired of night terrors. So I learned what kept me awake, And like I said, I wish I would have healed a long time ago before my children. But you don't know what this parents or their life has been gone through, Why ain't we getting them help besides taking their children? I mean, I can see if they're getting neglected or this or that. But,
Well,
no, they're actually getting abused, because this is based off of, and we talk about this too. How come they're terminating parents' parental rights, but no parent is being charged criminally for abusing their children?
Right. That's a good question. Or no abuse charges, period.
Right.
I know so many of them that's never had an abuse charge. Like I said, risk of harm, because they think maybe,
Yeah.
And people don't realize all these babies that they're coming to remove from the hospital, the 1997 Adoption Safety Act put in place.
That's
put a price on them babies' heads.
Yeah.
I think a social worker gets anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 bonus now if they adopt a newborn baby.
Sure.
I mean, that ain't child trafficking. That's a $20,000 bonus for that baby.
This is what the courts have said about drug use, and I'm reading it. The assumption that drug use constitute neglect inappropriately shifts the focus from the welfare of the child to the behavior of the parent. The parenting, not the supposed quality of the individual who is the parent, shall be at issue. Okay, so what they're saying is drugs, there's even cases in here that have said drug abuse alone is not enough to remove a child unless the child is being abused.
And there's also, in a lot of these things, there's also, because I know in, what's the one in New York? Man, I can't think of
Nicholson?
No, not Nicholson. But a lot of these things say that if you are in treatment already, that CPS has to turn and walk away from you. They're not allowed to mess with you. If you are already in a current treatment situation, they're supposed to turn and walk away.
And you know, a lot of people think because we're saying drugs, we're thinking of hard drugs. A lot of this, you know, was not hard drugs. Some of this, you know, parents were tested positive for marijuana back in the day. You know, like I said, right or wrong, but that ain't no reason to take a child out of the home or because you flunked the drug test for marijuana and you never see that child again.
You know,
And that's my opinion. Let me say that's just my opinion.
Just think about it. You know, they're sitting there and listen, I don't advocate for drugs either, but fentanyl is a dangerous drug. But it was only a couple of years ago. It was only a couple of years ago that if you had pain and you had things going on in your body, like I had a broken back, I was prescribed that stuff. I was prescribed that. You know, like that's it. And that gets them to come in my because I have old prescriptions. Now I'm held accountable because I have these things.
Right.
Because it's illegal. You know, come on. But what about, and you talk about this, what about all these parents? What are they supposed to do when they have broken backs and this pharmaceutical companies have had them on these drugs for 20 and 30 years? They're supposed to
That
just
was
stop
me.
them?
Yes. You know, I hurt my back at work and I was on it for years. Then all of a sudden now I'm stuck. Now I'm 63 years old. I hurt so bad sometimes I just cry. I can't get up. I can't get help, you know, because unless I
No,
want
I
to go in
agree.
to have surgery, I get nerves cut in my neck. You know, I want to walk. I don't want to be in a wheelchair.
Mhm.
Here's another one. State employee who withheld a child from their family may infringe on family's liberty of family association. Social workers could not deliberately remove children from their homes and place them with foster caregivers when the officials reasonably should have known such an action would cause health harm to the child's mental and physical health. 1990, and yet they're still doing it.
Right.
When was when was that study done from the University of Baltimore? The harm of removal. I mean, that's 80, 90, 100 pages of testimony and study that shows that they're destroying these children.
Right.
That the statistics show that if you get the second that they take look, the Bible says don't learn from the book, look at nature. The animals will teach you everything you need to know. So we are the only species that hands over our children.
Right.
You go try to take a
the Bible also says if you hurt a child to tie a heaviest millstone around your neck and throw you in the deepest part of the sea, you know?
That's
so, yeah. So
Here's
all these
another
people
one.
hurting children, you know, that's where you that want to believe in the Bible. That's where you need to do. Believe your Bible. Throw yourself in the deepest part of the sea to me.
Child removals are a seizure under the Fourth Amendment. Seizure is unconstitutional without a court order or exigent circumstances. Court order obtained based on knowingly false information also violates the Fourth Amendment.
Yeah.
Knowingly false.
A child has a constitutionally protected interest in the companionship and society of his or her own parents. I'm telling you, when we're going to start doing seminars, but I'm telling you, they don't like me here. I mean, we've invited everybody, and I mean everybody. The local FBI, the police, both sheriff's departments, the police departments, CPS, lawyers. We've invited everybody. Come on out because we're going to show you how you're breaking the laws.
Right. Right. I'm really lucky because in the judge, he was a juvenile judge, but he went up to be a federal judge. He's retired now. We're still friends with him. We're still friends with the judge that rescued us back then. You know, and we got problems, legal things. We always call him. You know, he just commented on one of my Facebook pages just the other day. We're still in touch with him because he remembers us. He calls us his girls. He rescued 121 of us, you know. And he said that he'll never forget when he was talking. He's like, just pretend like I'm your grandfather and tell us anything. He said nobody would say nothing, because we were scared. And he said at the end, he was getting ready to walk out, and he says, still to this day, he's looking for this girl. And we don't know. She stood up and yelled, "Help us! They're beating us!" And he said, and that's what made him turn around and come back and get them girls the next day. But like when we got interviewed, we had the governor, we had the state, we had Mr. Cameron, my abuser, Lester Roloff, the media. So we had the media cameras all around, and they're taking us in here. I got a picture of it, a news article too, and they're interviewing us. What do you think we were going to say? And we knew we were going to be left behind.
Mhm.
None of us said nothing. We were scared. And like
Right.
I said, it was very political, so we knew who was involved at that time. And people
Well,
don't believe these politicians are involved. They are deeply involved.
hmm there's, these people don't understand, and I tell these parents this too. It's almost like it's textbook. As soon as CPS gets a hold of you, and they put your kids into placement, it goes from these people don't want your kids. They're here to just help out and fill that void to, you know what? They really start to get to liking your kids. And then it turns into, you know what? Your kid doesn't really want to make these nightly phone calls anymore. To this kid doesn't want to have these visits with you anymore. To we're going to stop the visits. And all of this. It's almost like, but what you have to realize, like you just said, is these kids have to adapt to their situation. They're on their own. They get no playbook. They get no guidance. They have to do what they have to do. Like, it's a damn shame that these kids have to be taught a survival instinct at such a young age. Like, they have to figure it out on their own. They have to be like, look, if I tell my parents I love them, then these people that I'm staying with that are feeding me and taking care of me now are mad at me. And now I get put, I get put in the closet, or I get in trouble, or I disappoint them even. It doesn't even have to be that extreme. It's just some sort of a negativity that they realize, and they have to adapt to it.
Right.
So it's not,
And
they're
and
not
it
looking
is.
for that.
It's survival mode, and that's what we had to do. We had to learn to survive, and a lot of
Mhm.
people don't understand. That's why I'm so close to certain, different ethics, I guess you would call it, and different things, because we survived together.
Mhm.
You wasn't in them places like we were together. And we still are in contact with each other still today. We look out for each other because that's all we had then. It's all we have now.
That's awesome. That's awesome that you is that typical amongst um, foster
I
children that are in those situations, would you say?
I don't know. I mean, to our groups, because we were, like Lester Roloff was the evangelical that had us, because we call ourselves Roloff survivors, Roloff homes. There's many of us still open through the states today.
Mhm.
You can look up the Bethel Boys. They're on YouTube. You got Pieces of Victory. She's on YouTube. That was another one. New Beginnings is one. New Bethany Boys Girls Home. I mean, and we're pretty tight knit. You know, my friend has got a Netflix series out. It's on Haunted Series 2, Episode 3, called Cult of Torture. He made his story made Netflix. We got Teen Torture Inc. The Bethel Boys are on that. You'll see me on that at the end when we was making our laws. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm into a 3 little documentaries, just bits and pieces of, and if anybody knows anything making a documentary, if you get caught in one little fib, you're canceled. I mean, you're kicked off, you're canceled. So when it says that there's a difference between a movie and a documentary.
Mhm.
So people need to know if it says documentary, these have been checked back and proven to be true. Because a lot of people say, well, this stuff isn't true. That stuff didn't really happen to children. Yes, it did. Yes, it did.
Nobody cares until they show up at their door. In fact, there was a chick, we posted the flyer, and somebody made a comment about CPS isn't that bad. I almost asked for that address because I was going to send CPS to her door to see how bad it really is. But
Right,
I didn't.
right.
I said, obviously, you've never dealt with CPS And it's actually called incentive to separate. Why don't you come out and learn what the truth is?
Right.
And I just
I
left it at that.
I use a hashtag that I made, stop child abuse for profit, because that's all it is child abuse for profit,
Yeah.
you know. And we got to the point where we got our own language and terms, and sometimes I forget and I still use them. And people are like, what does that mean, you know? But one that is very common with us is called hamburger butt. People is like, what's hamburger butt, you know? Well, it's black, blue, and bloody, you know? That's what we
Mhm.
look like. And then if our skirts dried on it and you had to rip it off, oh my God.
Oh,
I mean, and I was so little at that time, I used to take my little bottom and fold up and put in the little toilet water because it was ice cold, you know,
yeah.
try to stop the bleeding and the stinging and the swelling, you know. And this was for little rules that we broke, like meeting of the eyes. You couldn't look nobody eye to eye. We always had you have your eyes, you know, head down. And I didn't look nobody in the eye until I was probably 35, 36, 37 years old before I can even look up and talk to people eye to eye, you know. Now I'm going to look at your eye to eye and I'm going to let you know I'm telling the truth, you know.
Right.
You didn't
Wow.
win. You didn't win. You didn't break me. They thought they were going to break me, but instead they made me. They made me a survivor. First I was a
Mhm.
That's
victim.
right.
Then I became a survivor. Now I'm a warrior.
You damn
So,
right. You are. You
you
damn
know,
right. You
and
And
there's
that's
many
you
of
say
us
that
out here.
because I tell people the same thing, right? I've been through a lot of stuff that should have broke me,
Yes.
right? First, I was a
are. Hmm.
victim. As long as you stay the victim, you give the people that victimized you the power.
Right.
Once you become a survivor, you take your power back and you say, this is who I am, and you did not break me.
That's right. And then that's where, and it took me a long time. And I think what really helped me is I had to realize I was a child. This was not my fault, you know, because I lived with the guilt. What did I do to deserve this? Why me? You know, why, why, you know, then I
I went
just had
through
to
all
face
that
it.
too.
Yeah,
I went
I
through all
know.
those emotions. I
Yes.
blamed myself for stuff that was way out of my control, way over my maturity level, right?
Right.
To realize that it wasn't in my control and the people that should have been in control did not take control. And
Hmm.
that's why we are where we are today. And I am
Right.
a warrior. You're a warrior. Darren's a warrior. And everybody on here is a warrior because
Hmm.
we don't stand up. Even I speak for my
Yeah,
community.
I do too.
Okay. I am loud and I am
Yes.
proud and I am the most where I live. And I'm proud of that because I'm
But no,
not
no,
going to
no.
let
You're not.
people,
You're not the most hated. You're hated by the enemy. You're loved
Right.
by those that need you. So
well,
don't.
Yes.
Don't.
right,
You
right.
know.
And
You know,
until my dying day, I will fight for families who don't have any justice and who has to deal with CPS for the wrong reasons.
right. You know, and don't get me wrong. I mean, there are children that do need to be removed that are getting hurt, you know,
Hmm.
And
but
we
then
agree
they
with
need to
that.
be put in a safe place. You cannot take one child from an abusive place and put them in a worse situation that they're in.
Right.
And
They
that
deserve.
happens to many of
They
us.
deserve Disney World every day. They deserve breakfast in bed. They deserve something that's gonna put them. You know, like what you would think they should get. Not
Right,
an abusive home. You know, like a vacation for the rest of their damn lives because they went through such hell. Not this. And the problem is the kids that are getting abused are staying abused and they're getting killed. That's what's
right.
happening.
They're being unalive. And
Yep.
to mention that, I have been on 4 human remain digs, you know, from my home.
Hmm.
And I can't say too much about it because I'm on a gag order. But you know, so
And that's unconstitutional.
First
but
Amendment right.
you know, but that goes to show you that children are not safe in these places. I mean, and it don't matter the state or religion. It don't matter because I've been in both sides. They're both horrific abuse to children
Hmm.
that have no life skills when we get out. You know, you don't know how to work. You don't know a bank account. You don't know how to do nothing because you're locked up in an institution and barely got to go outside.
Good God.
You
All
know,
because you wanted help.
all because I wanted help. I reached for help. And
Mhm.
like I said, and I will say the rest to my dying day, the worst decision of my life. I had one abuser that turned into many abusers.
Living in an egg. I'm lucky. I am lucky. I'm lucky. I'm lucky. I never, other than, like a spanking on my ass, I got to grow up with, my parents got divorced, and that was the worst thing that was the worst thing. You know what I mean? Like, and that even back when that happened in my kid situation, that was a bad thing. It was like, whoa, your parent, you don't even talk about this. But I mean, that's the extent. Like, I couldn't imagine what my daughter's going through now, thinking that we didn't want her, or we didn't love her, and that they came and took her from us. Or I can't imagine any of how these people. I can't. I mean, I live it every day. Like I'm pretty sure I do this because it reminds like I'm the cause of what took place. Because let's be honest, CPS doesn't just show up at your door because nothing happened. Something
Right.
took place to rise them up. And in this situation, it was my fault. I did something, or I was alleged to have done something, and that brought CPS. So every day, I will fight for my kid to come home every goddamn day for the rest of my life. But I'm fighting because my kid, I have to look at it like this. I lost my kid. Okay, so be it. But no one else is going to lose any more kids. Like that's a sacrifice. Like that's a
Right.
sacrifice that I've made. And that's the way I have to look at it. And I'd be damned. I mean, granted, we can't stop everyone, but if we just stop one, that's enough. Or if we get one back, that's a win. A win's a win's a win. Like no matter how we look at it, and we just keep. That's all we can do is crank away one at a time. That's
There's
all we
on
can.
YouTube. There's Phil Donahue, the Phil Donahue show. If you remember that, the Phil
Oh yeah,
Donahue show with Lester Roloff, and he
yeah.
admits on that. And this is in the early '70s, and that he's placed over 100 babies, and at that time, so you can imagine how many were placed through the years. And I sit there and think, these kids think they were abandoned or put up for adoption or something, and no, they were stolen. They were
Mm-hmm.
sold. My friend's baby, it's got a Southern Law Association lawsuit. Her baby was sold for $250 in a Piggly Wiggly parking lot.
Wow.
I mean, it's a very, these cases are very. You can go look them up if people don't believe this, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
as a matter of fact, though, last month she thinks they're waiting on the DNA that she has located her 40
Holy
years
moly.
later. So, and
Wow.
like, so we're, few babies have been found. The one we have found, Nancy, the stolennbc.com by Tyler Kincaid, her baby
Mm-hmm.
was in Africa. Another lady's baby we found was sold in Tasmania. Another one in Mexico. So these babies are being taken out of the country. They're not just left here in the United States,
Right.
and this is proven. This is documented. So, where people think this don't happen. Yes, it's happening, you know, and this is
Mm-hmm.
the United States of America. This is you, American children that this is happening
Yeah.
to. This is
Yeah.
not third world country because everybody wants to think and blame third world countries. Hold it here. You got this all wrong. This is American children.
Yep, that's it. Hey, Barbara, we got to get off here in the next couple of seconds here because we have a 9 o'clock
Okay.
show that's coming on. But
Okay.
is there anything that you want to get out
Yes, I
there
would
right
like to
now?
say yes, really quick. When we got rescued in June 16th, 1979, is the day that the FBI kicked in the door and rescued me. I just like to know that people know what CPS what they did. I was flown back to Illinois and I was put on the street. No foster home, no home or nothing. I was homeless on the street at 16 years old until I got emancipated. I just would like people to know that's your good system of CPS, Child Protective Program Services.
Wow. Is there any organizations or anything that you support or that you like to put out there that
Well,
that are good
I
for
was
any?
with unsilence.org. Unsilence is troubled teen industry survivors, us kids that were put into the institutions. We do
Yeah.
have over 200,000 homes in places that some homes been shut down, some are still open, that we got documented in survivor stories. I am also working with the Family Fraud family court fraud warriors right now too.
Oh, that's our man. Yeah, sweet.
Yeah, yeah. I've been working with Dave a little bit. Matter of fact, we had a meeting tonight, and I forgot to tell him that I was coming on here. But
I know I got to call him too. It's funny. I'll make sure I let him know that you were on here because I got to call him
yeah,
after this.
so I've been with him, and stuff. And the roll-off survivors, we're just us. We get out there and we support us, and that's what we call ourselves, roll-off survivors. The Bethel boys and the Rebecca girls, we fight hard just to bring children, to safety. Like I said, I work with the judge. We rescued 8 girls last year in Duck Hill, Mississippi. We got them to safety. So I just pretty well, I get banned and kicked off of so much. I just stay to myself anymore. There's a
Well, you got a
lot
home
of
here.
lot
You
of
got a home
toxic
here, that's
stuff
for
out
sure.
there.
You definitely
So
have a home here. So,
yeah, well, thank you, and
anytime-
thank you for letting me tell my story and let people
Oh, we're
know
not
that.
done. I'm thinking
that
that we definitely need some more time with you. I don't know if you maybe even I mean maybe we'll talk later on, but I'm thinking maybe we even put you in here once a week or something to do an update or something or to tell some more.
Okay, and then at that time I can send some of the articles and
Yeah.
some of the things I accomplished through the years. My testimony to the House of Representative. It's on YouTube.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. The people know that we are fighting for laws. Which, like I said, we got 2 laws passed, never been enforced. Actually, we got sued over the laws from another organization.
Of
But
course.
yeah.
But between all of us, we'll get this thing. We'll get this son of a
Oh,
bitch.
yeah.
It's our time. We got the right time. We got the right things in place. It's time to burn this bitch down.
Right. Yes. So,
It really
well,
is.
thank you,
Watch
and
what you
thank you,
say,
Tiff.
Karen.
Right,
Yeah,
I
yeah. I was going to say something too, but I kind of catch myself every year now and then,
No, well, yeah, that's great. Thank you so much. Tiff, what do you got to
Okay.
say? Anything last before we get out of here?
I just want to say that I hope everybody hears your story.
Thank
And
you.
I really, really hope that non-believers start believing, because this shit, you can't make it up. You can't make it up. I don't care who you are. You are a survivor, and I commend you, and I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to be able to tell my story without crying. I've only probably the last year that I haven't cried through an interview or stuff, because I couldn't,
You got to cry, you cry. That's it.
Yeah.
You own those tears. You deserve those tears.
Right. So,
All right, everybody. Well, thank you, Barbara, so much for being with us. We'll see you again for sure. Everybody, stay tuned for Sharon. She's coming on doing from ashes to beauty. Here she comes. Get on here, people. You need to listen to her. She's got a lot of good for people. So, all right, Barbara. Thank you very much. Tip. See you tomorrow, same time, same place.
Break these chains. See the children lost at sea. Dreams of freedom, wild and free. Shadows fall, but we stay bright. Hearts of truth with purest light. Don't tread on me, hear the call. Rise above, we'll never fall. And the tears lift the veil. In this fight we shall prevail. Abdiel sings tales untold of a future brave and bold. Steel guitar, the warriors cry. With our love, we touch the sky. Justice through the air. Voices join a symphony, together strong in harmony. stripes left sings tales untold of a future brave and bold. Steel guitar, the warriors cry. With our love, we touch the sky.